just trust the process. I think Drink has put us in a better spot since he got here. Obviously, since his first season in 2020, I think we're in a much better spot now. And there's really not a reason at this point to think that we can't be in an even better spot next year. Right. And I think we could have a down year. We could have a little bit loss of production, but I think overall we're heading in the right direction. So it's just like a trust the process type of thing.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Hello and welcome into Mizzou, That's Who, your podcast for Missouri Athletics here on KC Sports Network. I'm Tucker Franklin, joined as always by Maggie Johnson. And Maggie, we've got ourselves a full episode today. We got a lot of transfer portal talk to talk about. There's been a lot happening in the portal, a lot going on. This little 2-3 week blitz here before the Missouri Tigers take on the Iowa Hawkeyes in the Music City Bowl, a rematch of the 2020 game. But how you doing? How things going?
Good. Yeah, there's a ton going on. You've got transfer portal stuff. You've got players still committing from high school. And then you have the playoffs, which is a whole nother thing because you have players transferring that are playing in the playoffs. So, or at least whose teams are playing in the playoffs. So it's a very, very busy time in college football.
There'll probably be a guy that we'll talk about here in a little bit as we dive into the transfer portal things that made a decision that I think some people are not very excited with, not very happy with, and a guy that, Missouri might have Missouri might have some interest in as well. But last time we recorded this podcast, Maggie, Williams Nwaneri that day entered the transfer portal. We now know his destination. He's going to Nebraska. I don't think that surprised a lot of people considering who's on the coaching staff there. They did also add Terry Braden from the Kansas City Chiefs, a guy who, in all regards, has been talked very highly in the Chiefs organization in terms of assistant defensive line coach. He's now their defensive line coach out there. They kind of had an exodus at Nebraska of a bunch of defensive linemen. Then all of a sudden they gained Williams Nwaneri, the former 5-star number one player in the country by some recruiting sites called him the number one player in the country. But he lands with Nebraska. Not great to see Nebraska. That rivalry might get renewed again by recruiting battles, just kind of like the Oklahoma one has been ignited by recruiting battles, but that's to Nwaneri to Nebraska.
Yeah, I think we've gotten so used to Nebraska kind of falling at the wayside and not really being involved in anything. And here they go, making a bowl game, and all of a sudden, they're stealing some players.
Yeah.
But, we all know that he probably went there because Coach Mozzie was there. And, I forget the wide receiver's name. What's his son's name? That is also with Nebraska. That was committed to Oregon.
Isaiah Moses?
Yeah. That's it. Yep, Isaiah. So he also is going to Nebraska as well. So you're kind of getting that Lee Summit connection. And let's be honest, hiring dads and coaches of schools for those connections has been happening for decades, and we're just as guilty of it because that's how he got Michael Porter Jr. and John Porter. So, I mean, yeah, does it suck? Can I sit here and probably be like, Mozzie's been tampering with our players? Sure. Does it really matter that much because tampering is what happens in college football? No. It just sucks more when it's your own team.
Absolutely. And, Mozzie might have helped a little bit with getting Caden Green to Missouri. So, it is what it is in that regard of things. It happens. It's the portal giveth and the portal taketh away, right? Like, you live by the sword, you got to die by the sword as well. I think that's kind of what I tweeted out when Williams Nwaneri committed. Like, you're going to have a lot of NIL. Missouri is pretty comfortable in terms of their NIL budget. All reports say that Eli Drinkwitz has clearance to spend whatever he kind of wants in NIL in terms of the transfer portal. If you're going to do that, you're going to die by that too. So, it's just one of those things where you legitimately cannot win them all. And I think we see that here a little bit too as Jaylen Brown also hit the transfer portal as well. I don't know if we caught that one the last time we recorded the podcast. Nevertheless, he does enter the transfer portal. He commits to South Carolina. South Carolina's defensive line now looking kind of nasty.
Already kind of was.
No, that's the thing. South Carolina, They could have a legitimate Heisman contender with Lenore Sellers. They already had a top freshman defensive end. They add another defensive end who, Jalen Brown played more for the Missouri Tigers than Williams Nwaneri did last year. And he heads to South Carolina. Aiden Glover also hits the portal as well with Kewan Lacy. Kewan Lacy was in the portal for maybe all of 8 hours. Like that transfer happened so fast,
real fast.
Let's talk about Lacy before we get to Glover. I don't know if you have anything on Jalen Brown, but the Lacy one, a little disappointing. I think there were reports out there that he was thinking about it. Missouri had negotiated a deal for him to stay, and things change. People's opinion changes all the time, and that's just how it is in today's day in college football. He moves on to Ole Miss, which I don't think is a really that big of a shocker because we anticipated him already to commit to Ole Miss. I think Gabe Yarman, Power Mizzou, made a really good point on Twitter of we anticipated him to go to Ole Miss last year, before 30 minutes before his announcement. I think that they got word that it was going to be Mizzou, and that was kind of a surprise signing from Mizzou there. So the fact that he goes to Ole Miss, I don't think is a huge surprise, Maggie.
It's not a huge surprise. It just, for me, that's the biggest sucky one right now because you saw flashes of so much greatness in his play. I think that him and Jamal Roberts would have been a really good 1-2 punch for next year. And as of 36 hours ago, I'm not even thinking that we necessarily need a running back in the portal because you've got Marquise, what's his last name? The new one. I keep always saying
Johnson
because
yeah. That's not right.
That's the one we already have, but you know who I'm talking about. The new running back that was committed to Kentucky. We have him coming in. I mean, we have studs at run. Tavares Jones still we've got on campus, so we've got these guys these good running backs, and then you lose the one that you really think is just going to be a star. And not only do you think he's going to be a star, he stays in the conference to go be a star for Lane Kiffin, who's an offensive mastermind. So that one kind of hurts the most. I do believe that we have the running back from Army on campus tomorrow. So I don't know if it played a role at all in the transfer. I don't necessarily believe it could have, but I would think that being a true freshman and getting as much playing time as Lacy got, that he wouldn't really feel that threatened by that. I think it was more of I'm going to go back to the word tampering, but, I'm not going to judge him for tampering. I'm just going to say that's probably what it was.
Yeah, look, that is what it is. Marquise Davis, by the way.
Davis. Gosh.
Yeah.
I'm so selfish. I was thinking my own last name. So
Marquise Davis, he's a guy that really could be, again, a really good running back for this team. I do think that the two guys to bring in, who Brandon Haygood was originally a Boise State commit, decommitted, then committed to the Tigers, also has some potential on this team as well. But their running back room going into the transfer portal, you were thinking they probably don't need to add anybody. They probably don't need to add anyone in terms of those regards. But now it kind of looks like it with the Kewan Lacy transfer, they might need to add one. And look, they've got another guy from ULM on the schedule to visit as well. I cannot think of his name right now. I will find it. But they have. You talked about the Kanye Udo from Army is on there. I think that could be a good little 1-2 punch. Again, you talk about the kind of what they did this year when they brought in I always want to say Nate Noel, but I know that's not
Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel.
Yes. Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel, those two guys. Nate Pete is who I was thinking of, by the way.
He who shall not be named.
Yeah. Too many running backs with the name with Nate. Also, didn't he wear number 8 too? Didn't they both wear number 8?
No. Okay. Full disclosure, I'm the worst at numbers, players' numbers. I don't know why. I used to get quizzed on Cardinals based on numbers. I'm like, don't ask me that. Don't ask me if it's not Wainwright, Yachty, or Pools. I don't know their numbers. I do know Marquise Johnson is number 2 because, like I said, selfish with the last name.
Well, he also changed his number last year. If you remember,
it was 17 and it went to 2. I bought his jersey, so I know that.
So you are all over that one. But no, Missouri's bringing in guys. I think a lot of people, Maggie, before we talk about the guys that they have gotten transfer commitments from, Aiden Glover, a quarterback that was highly touted, just kind of, might not be at the right place at the right time, Maggie, because we're talking about Missouri trying to find a transfer quarterback. They've already got Sam Horn on the roster. Drew Pine is also on the roster, who has played meaningful snaps for this team. We're talking about Matt Zollers coming in. We're talking about a transfer quarterback also coming in. I think Aiden Glover kind of looked around and said, there might be too many cooks in the kitchen for me here.
Yeah, no pun intended, I feel like on that one. He can't, he came in, you don't necessarily know if when he came in if that Brady Cook is going to be a starter for 3 years or not. But it really is just you can be a great quarterback on a team and just never get the chance. And I think that's the great thing about the transfer portal is that it does allow that type of free movement for players that aren't going to play. But yeah, it's right place, right time. And I just don't think that with the amount of playing time that Glover has gotten to see, which I'm not sure is really any at this point.
Right.
And then you bring in somebody like Zollers, who is going at this point is going to be the main guy, the face of the program is what they're kind of making it out to be. There's really no reason for him to stay.
I think that's the big thing is that you're now we're talking about quarterbacks with obviously Miller Moss. We had a conversation about Miller Moss on last week's podcast. He commits to Louisville. I understand Missouri fans' frustration with that of like the optics of losing a recruiting battle to Louisville isn't great, but I don't know if it's necessarily like the end of the world that Miller Moss chose to go there. I think Miller Moss probably fits the Louisville Jeff Brom system a little bit better than what he would have fit Mizzou system. There's a quarterback out there that I think Fernando Mendoza, the guy from Cal, I think would be fun. Like he would be legitimately fun to watch in this Eli Drinkwitz Kirby Moore system. That's been a guy that's been tossed around a lot. I think he's only taken one confirmed visit or is taking one confirmed visit with Indiana. His brother is a quarterback at Indiana, which would be really interesting, right? If he went to Indiana to block his brother from playing, that seems a little odd. Like, that would be weird. I know he has some connections to some other universities, but Missouri is going to be one of those that that is going to try to get him on campus. The return to Cal is going to be the big one. I think they're still working on a deal to try to get him back. Look, I think that's what's going to be happening a lot in this transfer portal is players can decide and declare that they're going to the transfer portal and then come back. I think that might be what happens here is they want to see where their market is and see like what people are willing to pay for them. And if ultimately they have a better deal to come back, they will. But there's been quarterbacks tossed around with Fernando Mendoza. A new one that happened was Bo Pribula, Penn State backup, who played some meaningful snaps this year for Penn State. They had a package for him in this offense. Like, so it's kind of surprising to see him hit the portal. Missouri is interested in him. I believe it was reported today that it is UCF,
Iowa,
Mizzou, and Iowa are the three schools that he is going to take a visit with. It'll be tough if Missouri doesn't win recruiting battles there over Iowa and UCF in terms of just like offensive acumen. But Maggie, I don't know your thoughts on the two quarterbacks that Missouri is going after now.
This is when the transfer portal is just kind of so crazy to me because you have a guy that is going to be, I mean, obviously on the sidelines of that game with Drew Aller playing, and then him also putting in that he's coming back, which if I were him, I would have talked to my coach first and maybe said, yeah, let's wait until maybe after the playoff game. So if something happens, you have a good backup that can go in.
Yeah.
I like our chances out of those three. I also did like our chances with Miller Moss, though. So obviously that's, take it with a grain of salt. UCF, I mean, you see what happened with like KJ Jefferson. He goes down there and it's just, and I don't understand at this point wanting to go be a quarterback of a Big 12 or any school other than a Big 10.
Especially coming from the Big 10, right? Like coming from the Big 10, you're going to settle for, I guess Iowa's another Big 10 school, or like the Big 12. Like this seems like the natural jump up. It's a guy who also wants to play too. Like he wants to play football. That's the reason he's leaving Penn State is because Aller's coming back. I think Pribula has what 2 years remaining, maybe even 3.
I believe at least two. I think I read that because we were talking about how it's not a bad thing to have a quarterback that
Yeah.
has at least two because first off, you keep the pressure on the all of the other quarterbacks, but also it does when now Zollers comes in, it does give them the opportunity to have him wait another year and start his junior year if need be. Like you don't have to force him into a sophomore starting situation.
Or have competition that they haven't actually had in a while at that quarterback position. I know a lot of people like to think that the Horn and Brady Cook quarterback competition was a scam, was like a sham competition. I don't think that's true because they've tried for like the last 3 years to get somebody to beat Brady Cook and nobody has. Is kind of what it came down to with the quarterback room. And I know a lot of Drink's going to take a lot of heat for like whatever quarterback they sign is going to be pretty. You got to hit this position, right? Like this is a position that Drink has not hit very well. He's got
never gotten his own guy in.
Correct, but not really fair for Brady Cook. Technically, Brady Cook is not his guy, right? Because he committed to Barry Odom, but like Barry Odom left.
Yeah, Brady Cook was committed to Mizzou. I don't think it really mattered.
Yes,
it mattered.
Yes, which I mean, I understand all that, but yes, that's going to be a big one. Ahmad Harvey, by the way, was the running back I was thinking of out of ULM. Missouri doing the work on running backs again in the portal, so that'll be interesting to see. Back to the quarterback position and kind of bringing this back to Aiden Glover. Both of these guys that they're talking to with Fernando Mendoza, with Bo Peribula, they both have multiple years of eligibility. And again, in the Aiden Glover sense, you have a 5-star coming in. You have a team that's looking at quarterbacks in the transfer portal with multiple years of eligibility. You have Sam Horn, who is already ahead of you in the depth chart. I don't blame Glover at all for looking around and being like, yeah, I'm going to dip out of here. Like that. I get that. Totally understand that.
And he might be a type of quarterback that a Big 12 school would be more interested in as opposed to Pribula or somebody coming over from a Big 10 school.
It's going to be really interesting with Pribula because a lot of the situation before we get to the break, a lot of the situation with Pribula was him entering the transfer portal as his team is playing in a college football playoff game. Maggie, I don't know your thoughts on this. The way that the schedule lines up with him kind of having to declare that he's going into the transfer portal, which look, did he have to leave the team? No, Preston Stone is in the transfer portal, but he said he's going to stay with the team until the season's over. Aaron Nolan also in the transfer portal. I think he might be leaving the team, but like it's a very different situation where Pribula had snaps. Like he went in when I guess Oregon again when Aller got hurt, or Washington, maybe one of those teams out there. I think it might have been Washington. He went in when he was hurt, and he played significant snaps against for Penn State. So, like, it's an interesting situation, Maggie. I don't know how you feel about him leaving the team to see where he's at and everything like that. But James Franklin also kind of had the comment of just like, yeah, we talked about it. Like, we felt like this is best for him. It sucks because it puts us in a no lose situation.
Yeah, with the timing, I mean, obviously the transfer portal opened up a little bit earlier this year than last year, but you have to remember that they're called student athletes, and
it has
does
to,
that
yeah.
does that doesn't mean necessarily that these are great students. Some of them, like Brady Cook, SEC Scholar of the Year. Congrats to Brady Cook.
Yes.
But he has to go somewhere because schools like Mizzou are looking for their quarterback right now. Like you can't afford to wait. You have to hustle on this, and then they need to enroll by, I don't even know what that deadline was, like January 4th, 5th. It's somewhere in there. They have to enroll. So he doesn't really have a choice. His hands are a little bit tied. Like you got to go there. You got to find your team. You got to find your place.
Yeah, that's the transfer portal has to start when it starts because of the way that like school semesters work, right? And that's what's so that's what's so tough about it is that like if we're gonna still tie these to universities and institutions, which I think is the plan moving forward, is to still be a university team. You have to adhere to the university rules in terms of semesters and everything like that. The transfer portal has got to start when it is. I think what really is what's going to happen, and You saw this with Marshall. Marshall had to withdraw from their bowl game because they had so many transfers. What's going to happen is you're going to lose bowl games. And like, that's just going to be one of the things where you're going to lose bowl games, where the transfer portal will open up maybe a little bit later. So those first teams out of the playoffs can kind of have their guys hit the portal after the first round of playoffs. But it's going to be one of those things where I think this kind of spells the beginning of the end for bowl games. And look, bowl games are fun. Like they're a great time. They allow an extra game, but you're already seeing opt-outs. You're seeing coaches leave. You're seeing transfers. You're seeing all kinds of stuff that indicates that they're not that big of a deal to these players and these teams and these conferences and these schools. So like I think that this is just kind of spells the beginning of the end for the bowl game system, sadly, which I know Maggie and I will both be in Nashville for Missouri's bowl game against the Iowa Hawkeyes. I'm excited for it. I look forward to bowl games.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you get to go. I mean, I've been to Nashville. I couldn't even tell you how many times, but
No,
when you get to go to new places and check out new stadiums, and I've never been inside Titan Stadium, so that'll be cool. Actually, I'm lying. I saw Taylor Swift inside Titan Stadium, but I haven't been to a football game inside of Titan Stadium. So, I mean, bowl games are still fun. I said this last week. I'm like, it's really fun for the players as well. Like, they get a bunch of free stuff, and they get treated like, you know, it's like a week of them kind of being treated like kings and they get to hang out with the guys from the other team a little bit too. And, you know, get to know some people they might not ever know outside of getting to play football. So I like the bowl system. It does suck when you have opt-outs. We've been on the crappy side of opt-outs before with Tyler Beatty not playing and Bazelak transferring and all of that. But you kind of, I mean, I get why players aren't playing in them.
100%. Last thing before the break, I did just see this come across. Teague Anderson, Utah State offensive lineman, who's been on a few visits kind of around in the area, committed to NC State. So he is off of the table for the Missouri Tigers. Interior offensive lineman. Look, Missouri's going to be hounds in the portal when it comes to the offensive line too, because they're going to need some offensive linemen. Maggie, we've gone... Yeah, we need some tackle. We've gone 21 minutes, haven't talked about the additions that Missouri has had. The last time we talked about the podcast, we didn't have any transfer portal additions. Now we have 4 to talk about. We're going to take a break. On the other side, we'll talk about the new guys that are going to be Missouri Tigers next year.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Trying to look back at the dates of these commitments here. The first commitment Missouri got was one that I think was expected. I believe this happened, the 14th was Saturday, wasn't it? Yeah, the 14th was Saturday. This is Kevin Coleman. I think a lot of people anticipated him to come home. East St. Louis, right? Or he's from St. Louis. I think he went to East St. Louis, which is essentially Missouri. When it comes down to it. But Kevin Coleman, the wide receiver from Mississippi State, 4-star product, comes back to Columbia. And look, I think there was a lot of positive momentum. This was just before the Miller Moss commitment. Thinking, hey, look, he's coming here. I think Miller Moss might see that and be like, hey, another good wide receiver coming. Kevin Coleman, another wide receiver, comes with the nasty wideouts and Jacob Peeler. I think that's an exciting addition from Mizzou.
No, I totally agree. It sucked whenever this recruitment was going through when he was a senior in high school, and you're like, oh, this would be so amazing to get both Luther Burden and Kevin Coleman on the same team. Barely there's some kind of big time rivalry between the two of them, and that's kind of why he didn't come here. But it is still cool to see him at home. He had a decent game, I believe, against us back in when we played Mississippi State in mid-November.
Mm-hmm.
Our wide receiver room is good. It's still good. I mean, we lose, obviously. Losing Theo Weiss is just, right now, at this point, just as big as losing Luther Burden, just because he's so good. His awareness, his field awareness is so good. His hands are so good. But, I mean, if you have guys like, you got Kevin Coleman, a true slot receiver. You still got Marquise Johnson. You got Joshua Manning. I mean, it's still a really good wide receiver team. And then you have those really good players on the bench as well. I thought I was going to worry a little bit more about our wide receiver room, but I feel a little bit more confident in it, getting that early commitment from Kevin Coleman.
Yeah, I think so. I think that one being the first one was kind of big for Missouri to kind of get the ball rolling, get the dominoes rolling. Kevin Coleman went to St. Mary's. Apologies. He did not go to East St. Louis. He went to St. Mary's over in St. Louis, Mo. So he gives a Missouri Tiger. That was quickly kind of followed up on the commitment side there. Kind of quiet because Missouri was anticipating to get a little bit more, but they get Santana Banner, which I believe happened kind of late on Sunday night, early Monday morning. They get a Santana Banner safety from NIU to hit the Missouri Tigers. Look, they were really looking for one safety. They kind of need some cornerback help still, but they canceled some visits too that was speculated to have. So they got this commitment. But Maggie, I think the two big ones here, Mackay get. How do you say his last name? How do you think you say his last name? I think the G silent. I almost started it, but I think the G silent. I haven't looked it up, which I can look it up right now, but
I would guess like Gaber, but I don't know. You should look it up, and
I'm gonna look it up.
You should play it on the YouTube sound.
Mackay Bayer is how I'm gonna say it, 'cause I think the G silent, like Williams Winery. That's kind of how I'm kind of playing it.
Oh, okay.
He is Nebraska's, I believe, leading tackler last year. Comes over, if not, he's the leading returning tackler. He commits to the University of Missouri with Josiah Trotter, two linebackers. Look, Maggie, we were on the podcast last week talking about how Missouri kind of needed to add some linebackers because they were losing a ton of linebackers. They get two top, I believe, 5 linebackers in the portal. I believe number 2 and number 4. According to 24/7. So pretty good day for the Missouri defense yesterday on the transfer portal.
No, that's massive on the defensive side. We definitely are losing a few guys just due to eligibility. I'm sure there'll probably be some undrafted free agents in that group. But,
yeah,
it's kind of been a turnover in that linebacker position. I think a couple of these guys have a couple of years left, I believe. I don't think that they're in their last years of eligibility. So, no, it's the linebacker room. I'm feeling a lot more confident about it than maybe I was, at the end of the Arkansas game, because I was definitely nervous. I'm still a little bit nervous about. I know we returned like all of our corners. I'm still just nervous about that productivity because I didn't think it was great last year. But yeah, the linebacker room, I'm feeling a lot better about it.
I'm still trying to find the pronunciation of his name. It looks like there's a lot. Actually, I saw one that said you pronounce his name Mackay, and I was like, okay, sick. That's not what I was asking for. So there's some people saying is the G or the B silent, and that's an interesting. I didn't even think about the B being silent. I'm still trying to find. This is a live lookup right now as we.
Bear. It's Bear. I found it.
Okay. Let's go with that. There we go. I was afraid to play anything because of my computer setup over here.
I did it anyways.
There you go. No, it's perfect. I think that's really what we needed to do is just bite the bullet on that one and play the audio. Mackay Bayer, which there we go. The linebacker room did need some help. They do get some help. Josiah Trotter, a highly productive guy last year for West Virginia. Kind of surprised he didn't go back with the kind of momentum that West Virginia has with the hiring of Rich Rodriguez and everything like that. Nevertheless, glad he's a Missouri Tiger. You saw him and Mackay kind of talking to each other on social media after their commitment, which I do think Missouri's in a good spot when it comes to the transfer portal right now. Let me look at their class. I believe they're sitting pretty good. I think a 17th overall on 24/7 in terms of the transfer portal. And I know there's some angst, Maggie. There's some angst right now with Missouri fans that they don't have a quarterback. They don't. Some things aren't quite going the way that they anticipated them. So there's some angst between Missouri fans. How are you feeling about Missouri's attempts so far in the transfer portal?
I think we need to get a few. We obviously need to get some offensive tackles. We likely need to get a punter. I don't know if Luke Bowers return. I think he can.
He can. He walked, but he also is still eligible, but they also don't know if he's coming back. It's a weird situation.
I'm not sure why you don't come back if you're Luke Bauer, but hey, right. I'm not Luke Bauer, so but I think everybody is just in this state, and the transfer portal kind of makes you get this way of everything has to happen now. And if one person's off the board, nobody else is coming in. there's still going to be players that are going to enter the transfer portal. It's crazy. I've heard silly rumors about like Quinn Ewers and things like that. Because here's a question.
Yeah.
If you're Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers does come back, I'm not saying he's going to, but if he does, would you transfer? Because I feel like Quinn Ewers has proven that he's a starting quarterback somewhere. Yeah. I don't understand, because I think, and at this point, he's in his sophomore year. Mm-hmm. It'd be a junior. I don't know why he would sit behind Quinn Ewers for another year. I feel like, and he might not. He might not. They might say, okay, well, if you want to come back and play football, you're going to have to come back and play football somewhere else. And I've heard,
that's what they should do. I think that's what Texas should do. Because we got to see, I almost said Eli, Arch do some things this year, right? Like we got to see him play, and we got to see him like, okay, like this kid can play. I think they put him in against Georgia, and they're like, okay, this wasn't the problem. It wasn't the first time that they played, not the second time in the SEC championship game. But I think that like either Quinn Ewers is either going to go to the NFL, which maybe this should be the year for him to go to the NFL, when you start to look at things and how this
not a great quarterback class,
right? How this quarterback class is shaping up, especially with all our choosing to come back to school. It's also going to depend on who pays him, right? Like, could Oregon be like, you know what, let's go get another transfer quarterback? Could he? I think he could be fun in Oregon's system. It's going to be really interesting to see the quarterbacks that are in the teams. I shouldn't necessarily even say the quarterbacks. The teams that are in the how the transfer portal gets handled for them, because I do think Oregon has a pretty highly touted quarterback prospect that they keep getting transfers in over. How long is he going to be there and be like, you know what, I just still want to be an Oregon Duck, right? Like that doesn't happen anymore. Like no one's really committing. I know this is not going to be fun to say. No one's committing for the university anymore. Like it's for the money, and like that's fine. Like that's totally okay. And I know some people are upset that that's happening, but it is a bummer. But looking at like the transfer portal, like Ole Miss has signed, I think 3 of the top 4 transfer commits already, and like why they're doing that, and not because people love the University of Mississippi. Nobody loves Oxford, Mississippi that much that they're choosing to go there. Maybe they do. 11 in the transfer portal class, by the way, for them. 17th overall when you add in their class that they had for high school kids. So I love that they combine the two now. Like you can put it all together, your composite ranking of both the high school and the transfer portal class and everything like that. But look, I think Missouri's in an okay place. I really do. I mean, I know it sucks to see like the first guy you bring in pick somewhere else. That's not a fun visual optics, right? But overall, I mean, you look where he's at. Now, I know the 24/7 rankings or like any of these recruiting site rankings aren't the gospel or the Bible, right? But Miller Moss was ranked below Pribula and below Fernando Mendoza in terms of like how these people saw the transfer of Miller Moss. So I do think that Missouri is in a fine position. I know they don't have a quarterback yet, and that can make people antsy, but I know that they've lost some five-star talent. Kewan, Lacy, they lost him as well, and Jaylen Brown. I know that can make people feel uneasy about what's going on with everything around the program. Rightfully so, I get it. But I don't think it's time to fully hit the panic button. I can understand.
Every school's losing players. I mean, does Arkansas? I don't think Arkansas at this point. I'm surprised they haven't opted out of a bowl game, to be honest with you. Same with Oklahoma. I'm kind of surprised both of them haven't really, chosen to just say, you know what, we'll sit this one out. It doesn't really matter that much. But I mean, if it's like you said, the portal giveth and the portal taketh away. So you just kind of have to wait and like process things. You keep seeing all the positivity from these coaches online. I think Brian Early's had some positivity posts on his end, and there's Coach Drink that's like retweeting people saying like
he's like retweet college football burners, man. Like he's out treating burner accounts.
I honestly don't know what he's doing. I feel like some people are just trying to bait him a little bit. Yeah. But we just gotta have a little bit of faith. I love what Coach Looper does for the running back room. Like, we talk about Coach Looper all
Mhm.
the time and the success that he's had. I think it's crazy that like a player like Kewan Lacy, who is playing under a guy that's, so accomplished, wouldn't want to leave. But you do understand it because, like you said, it is just a money grab at this point.
Yeah.
Everything is for money. But you have to understand that at the end of the day, is that what's going to be best for you long term? Because you look at guys like Mekhi Wingo. I think Mekhi Wingo would have been more successful if he stayed at Missouri. I mean, he had an outstanding. I mean, he did get drafted. I think it was later in the draft, but came to Missouri, played a lot, was all freshman, first team all freshman, or all freshman first team, however you want to say it.
Mhm.
And I think that his draft stock dropped when he went to LSU. I think Dom Lovett is similar. I think he is like wide receiver-ish one, but they're a tight end school. That's who they like to go to. So you also have to think about this in terms of your own future and their own potential.
Yeah.
And what, if money is more important now than it is then, that's fine. That's for players coming to Mizzou too. They might, they could leave and think there's better potential going to Ole Miss.
I'm doing a quick little search here of just schools and like their outgoing transfers. OU's had 22 outgoing transfers already. Alabama's had 15. Texas A&M 20. 13 for South Carolina. And who else you want me to look up in the SEC, Maggie, real quick?
Well, a few of them, Georgia and Tennessee, are still playing.
Right.
So they don't really matter that much. Did you say Arkansas?
I have not said Arkansas. Let me look up Arkansas real quick. The Razorbacks, they have had 27 outgoing transfers. So Missouri's had 11. Missouri's had 11. So I just want people to put that in perspective. Like, yeah, Williams-Winery, big one, right? Kewan Lacy, big one. But Missouri really hasn't lost a whole lot in the portal the past, like, ever since the portal's been announced, right? Like, they have not lost a whole lot. Yeah. And I think that says a lot about Eli Drinkwitz. And I know that people will be upset that he lost a 5-star, that he lost Kewan Lacy, that Aiden Glover's in the portal. I know they're going to see all these names, but they haven't really. Here's another thing, Maggie. They haven't lost production either. Like, they haven't lost a lot of production in the portal. I think that's a big thing as well. You're looking at some of these guys for like Arkansas that are hitting the portal, and like Oklahoma's losing like all 6 of their wide receivers that finished the year for them. Like, you're seeing guys that are like legit guys for these teams that are hitting the portal. Missouri hasn't had that. Knock on wood that it doesn't happen. But I think that's what my main takeaway is from the portal is that, look, these guys are they're going to come and go. It's a money thing now. It is what it is. Missouri's in the NIL game. They're doing a really good job with NIL. That's good. You're going to win some. You're going to lose some. You can't pay everybody, right? I think that's what's going to come down to. And the decisions of like which of these players are going to the transfer portal and which of the coaching staff is choosing to pay, right? I guess you could say that in air quotes, choosing to give the money to, I kind of have full faith in. I know that might make me seem like a shill, right? I might be a shill of the university because I have faith in the coaching staff and their decisions. But I do think that that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm not panicking. I'm not worried about it. I think with whoever they bring in quarterback wise, it's going to be good for the team for the long term. They're going to get a guy that might not be in the portal now. Like, look, I think this is a really good point to bring up too. Curtis Rourke finished, I think, 10th in the Heisman voting, was the Ohio quarterback last year, and nobody batted an eye when he committed to Indiana. Like, there's some sentiment like that too. The guy might not even be in the portal. He might not even cause that big of a splash, but he could cause a big splash once he gets into the system. I'm not really too worried about it when it comes down to it.
Yeah. The team that's on the field in August is going to be your team. And there's really nothing that we can really do about that outside the coaching staff. And I mean, you can donate more to NIL if you want to. I don't really know like what a regular fans, like if you can donate enough money to really make that big of a difference. But yeah, you just trust the process. I think Drink has put us in a better spot since he got here. obviously, since his first season in 2020. I think we're in a much better spot now. And there's really not a reason at this point to think that we can't be in an even better spot next year.
Right.
And I think we could have a down year. We could have a little bit loss of production, but I think overall we're heading in the right direction. So it's just like a trust the process type of thing.
Continuing my search here, LSU's had 16 transfers hit the portal. Auburn has had 15. Florida has had 15. I have yet to come across an SEC school that has a less than Missouri. So it's not time to
Okay.
but I think it's all right. We'll see as like the transfer portal moves on and marches on. We will see how it all shakes out, because there's still plenty of time left, even though plenty of time and not a lot of time, if that makes sense, at the same time, when it comes down to the transfer portal. But Maggie, anything else before we get out of here?
I was just gonna see who you liked in this weekend's games. We got them college. We got a 12-team playoff happening this weekend. I was just gonna see who you liked.
I'm really excited to see the Indiana Notre Dame game, just because of the potential weather that could be with that game. I think I've seen it kind of all over the place. I love to see those games up north. I think that's going to be a fun one as well.
Yeah, I think Tennessee at Ohio State Tennessee is kind of cracking me up on Twitter this week, just talking about how they're gonna stripe the stadium and they're like, we're gonna tear down the goalposts over the river. They're just being Tennessee fans, so it's pretty funny to watch like two very hostile fan bases kind of go at it, because Ohio State is just as hostile as Tennessee. But I still think I like Notre Dame in that game. I think obviously Jeremiah Love from St. Louis is the running back for Notre Dame, and he's had a really good season. We'll see if Indiana's defense can stop Notre Dame. They struggled stopping Ohio State, obviously. Right. So it'll be a very good test. I like the favorites in Penn State.
Right.
And to see Ohio State's hard. So Clemson and Texas is hard too, because Clemson can play like a playoff team. We've seen them have some down games, but I've seen them play great as well. So that game will also be interesting. I think Texas will still probably squeak it out, but I can't even pick who I think between Tennessee and Ohio State. Probably Ohio State.
I just realized that the Indiana Notre Dame game is on Friday and all the other ones are on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember talking about, whenever I was talking to my friend about that, because don't the Chiefs play?
Yeah, the Chiefs play on Saturday.
They play on Saturday. So I remember when we were originally talking about if Mizzou made the playoffs, and I was like, obviously you'd go to the game, right? And he's like, well, it just depends on what time the Chiefs game is. So I'm like, oh.
Chiefs play at noon on Saturday.
Why can't they not spread this out? Like, we have to go multiple days where like tonight, what are we watching tonight? Memphis, West Virginia, in the Frisco Frisco Bowl. There's so many. I mean, Wednesday we got Western Kentucky and James Madison. I do like Cal UNLV will be interesting also on Wednesday. But I mean, there's so many games like spread out. I'm like, why can't we do this so not ever NFL and college are all at the same time?
Yeah, the NFL's just kind of said, screw it. We're just going to play whenever we want.
Go back to Sunday, please.
Right, they're playing a game on Christmas, which, like, fine, but Christmas on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
I think if Christmas falls on a Saturday or on a Sunday or a Monday or a Thursday, you're okay to play on it. Any day other than that, don't play. That's my soapbox. Stop playing on these holidays. It affects me and my work schedule when you have to play on Christmas.
Exactly.
But yeah, look, it's going to be a long weekend, full of football. That Penn State SMU game's at 11 a.m. That's too bad. I am we're watching Chiefs.
No. It's brutal. It's brutal scheduling, and then the next games are literally a week later. Like, they don't even play until after. I mean, it makes sense because college football games are always a week apart, but they don't even play till after our bowl game.
I'm looking at the dates again. Why are they okay? This doesn't make any sense. Okay, so they have 4 games this week, right? Why don't they just do 2 Friday, 2 Saturday?
I don't know.
They do the same thing in the next round, where it's.
Except those games are on now. Well, I guess they're New Year's Day. But yeah, they have the New Year's Eve game for the Boise State,
and then three New Year's Day games.
Yeah,
that doesn't make it like why don't you just go 2-2? That nobody obviously talked to us about the schedule.
Yeah, exactly. We could really make this more convenient for everybody. If I was picking, the Zoo also would not be playing at 1:00 on a Monday.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out work for that one. But look, I already got tickets. I already got the rental car, so I mean, I'm already going. Gotta figure out things on the back end. But yeah, I'm gonna picks wise, I'm gonna go Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame. Is that chalk? Yeah, it is chalk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think that like SMU winning would be fun, but I don't know. It's a whiteout too. Also plays into it.
Yeah.
Notre Dame to win.
Yeah, I mean, same. I think if it's a team that can win out of most of those, I would say it's Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tennessee can be Ohio State, but I think they have to play. It's interesting because now Ohio State is coming off, even though it's been a few weeks now, they're coming off like an embarrassing loss at home to your rivals. Yeah. I think that's not good for Tennessee, to be honest with you. But I wouldn't mind if Indiana won, even though I've kind of dogged them a little bit this year, but it could be fun. Yeah. I still don't think Notre Dame should even be in there. If you lose at home to Northern Illinois, you're out. Like, that's an immediate disqualifier, in my personal opinion.
I agree. Join a conference, too.
Yeah, also join a conference.
Get out of here with that independent bullshit. I'm tired of that. This isn't the 1920s anymore. You can join a conference.
Yeah, if you're going to play in a basketball conference, then you can play in a football conference.
They're Big Ten in hockey.
Oh, gosh. So they're Big Ten in hockey. They're ACC in basketball.
Yep.
Yeah. Why do they get to do whatever they want? It's so annoying.
It is.
Gosh, no. Yeah, I'm cheering for Indiana. Get Notre Dame out here.
Go Hoosiers. This is a Hoosiers podcast now, apparently. Yeah, I think I really would love to see Indiana win that football game. That would be phenomenal. I also don't think Nico's that good. So I think Ohio State might win that one. In Texas, I feel like kind of is a crapshoot. Like they're either going to be really good Texas or they're not going to be good. And if there's a team to get really bad Texas out of them, it's probably going to be Clemson. So I think that's a tough matchup for the Longhorns. But I do like that we're getting these matchups that you don't usually see, right? Like, what was the last time Penn State and SMU played? What was the last time that Tennessee and Ohio State or Texas and Clemson played? I mean, Indiana Notre Dame kind of seems like one that they've played.
Yeah,
like that seems like a non-con game, but yeah.
That's like that's an awesome like in-state rivalry still that you
100%.
You don't get to see that often. Like that place is gonna be it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah. I'm excited for the on-campus aspect of it too, for these playoff games. So I think that's great for the first round of these playoffs, and maybe when they expand it to 16 or 24. What did Travis Hunter say he wanted?
Before it's March Madness, basically.
Right. Yeah. But I think having more on-campus games, the better. I'm always pro play your rivalries at the campuses. I know that they've been moving these games, like I think Good Old Fashioned Hate or Clean Old Fashioned Hate was moved to the Mercedes-Benz Dome for the next upcoming seasons, which I think is lame. I think they should play them on campuses. I'm very pro play rivalry games on campus. Like I understand why like Georgia and Florida's not, because it's like never really been played on campuses. So like cool, play that in Jacksonville. That's fine. But
could you imagine like the Iron Bowl not being played at either Alabama or Auburn? Like that would suck. Like I get the appeal. Everybody talks about the appeal of the Red River Shootout or whatever rivalry, whatever you want to call it. They're like, yeah, but it's at the Cotton Bowl and it's 50-50 and it's so cool. How cool would it be though if you gotta have Texas in Norman? Like, right. I mean, nobody wants to be. It's like 1,000,000 degrees out at those games. That doesn't sound fun.
Yeah, no, I agree. More on-campus rivalries. That's now we're a pro on-campus rivalry podcast too. So I think that's going to do it for this week's edition of Mizzou That's Who. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us all the way until the end. Thanks to Home Field Apparel for outfitting us on today's episode. both rocking some Leaping Tiger stuff.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's great. We both got the Leaping Tiger going on. Super comfortable stuff that they got at Home Field Apparel. So for Maggie Johnson, I'm Tucker Franklin. That's going to do it for today's episode. We will catch you next time.